Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be doing a short watercolor demonstration for you. I'm going to be painting a tulip using watercolors, and I've got my supplies all set up here, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about what supplies I'm using and how I get started. So my first task was to cut out a piece of watercolor paper to the size that I wanted, and then I taped that piece of watercolor paper down to a firm surface. I am using a drawing board as my surface, and I used Scotch Blue painter's tape to tape my paper down. And the reason I use that kind of tape is so it is meant to be gentle on the paper, so when you pull it off, it won't tear your paper. And the reason that you are taping down your paper before you start painting on it is because that water will start to make your paper curl and warp. And so by taping it down, it will stay nice and flat while you're working. So then I've got my palette here. I've got 12 pans of watercolor. These are dry. And pretty much these 12 colors can mix about anything I would need. You can see I have been using the sides of my paint trays as my palette here. And these colors that are mixed were from previous projects. And then I've got my water, of course. I've got a paper towel to clean my brushes, and then I have 3 different sizes of round brushes today. Not sure if I'll need more than one, just kind of figure it out as I go, but I really love the round brush shape for watercolor. Reason being, as you can see, it comes to a nice fine point here, so if you are using it lightly, you can do small details with this point, but you can also apply more pressure and have the paint be more spread out by the brush. So they're pretty versatile. So you'll see me using those today and how I use them. And then I have a reference photo. I almost always have a reference photo when I'm painting. It helps me figure out the colors, the lighting, and I usually use photos that I take myself. I feel like it's a little bit more personal, and I like to take photos of nature, or I'll use photos that maybe a friend or family member took. If not, if I'm looking for something that I maybe don't have a photo of, then there are some great image resources online for artists to make sure that they are copyright-free images so that it's okay to use and share that photographer's work. I used a website today called Unsplash, and that's where I found this picture, and I'll link in the description the photographer and where I found it on that website. But there are a lot of great images on websites like those. And then I decided to lightly sketch with a pencil the general shapes of where I'm going to be painting, just to help me figure out where to first lay the paint when I get started. You can see I sketched very lightly because this is going to need to be erased in the end because watercolor will not cover this up. And I didn't get super detailed with it. I just want the general shapes to give me guidance of where these big areas of lighter and darker spots are, so I know where to start. So let's get down to the actual painting portion. So I've sped up these videos a little bit while I'm painting, and I'm doing a voiceover just to kind of describe my thought process. So to start out, I'm going to mix my first color. What's a big area that I want to block in? I decided to do orange. You can see there is a good amount of orange in this tulip. So I'm combining my reds, and I have 2 different kinds of yellow. I've got a warm one and a cool one. So I'm just trying to get the right kind of ratio down to give me a nice basic orange color that I can put down first. I don't want it to be too dark because I can layer darkness over it later. It was getting a little too dark, a little too red, so that's why I moved over to a different part of my palette to kind of get it to be lighter. And then I'm going to start actually blocking in my tulip. Now, again, it's okay that this is a little bit lighter than it actually is in the picture in some places, because I'm going to go back over the darker areas later. But right now, I'm just finding wherever there is orange underneath there. And you can see, as I first put down the color, it's dark because there's a pool of paint there, and then I kind of use my brush to push it around and it becomes thinner and lighter as I spread it out. So I'm kind of strategically pushing the color around, putting more paint in some areas and letting it pool, and then pushing it around more in others. It was getting a little bit dark in this spot, so I got a new brush, a clean brush, and just put some clear water on it and wiped away a little bit of that color. Now on the right side of the tulip, you can see from the picture it's a little bit more red on that side. So when I'm going to my palette, I'm picking the orange I created that has a bit more of the red paint in it. It's a bit darker on that side. So I'm happy with how the orange is laid in. So now I'm going to mix up some red for my kind of pink tone that we've got going on the tulip and block in those areas. Again, you can kind of see the way I'm pushing the paint around to let some areas be darker and some be lighter. You can always go back and emphasize this more. But again, we can see on the right side of the tulip, it's a bit darker. So I made that red. I applied more paint and used less water. So now it's time to add in some purples for kind of my shadows and to darken up some of those pink areas. They're a little bit more of a purple color. So I have some blues and some reds that I combined, and you can see I'm adding in those shadows. I started to notice there was a little bit of yellow towards the bottom of the tulip, and also on the right side there I added a little bit more at the bottom. So now that I have some general colors laid down, I'm going to go back in and re-emphasize darker areas with darker colors. So I've got a darker orange that's got a bit more red in it, and I'll add a little bit more red and purple in some areas around the tulip. As you can see here, I decided this area needed to be a bit darker, and I realized I put too much red down, so I grabbed a little piece of paper towel, and while it was still wet, I blotted that up. So that's what you see me doing sometimes when I lay down something too dark and then you see me lighten it. I usually just use a paper towel. As long as the paint's still wet, it comes up no problem. So now I'm happy with the top of my tulip. I'm going to move on to the leaves. So for this big leaf, I'm going to start by laying a light shade of green down over the whole thing. It's the lightest green I see on the leaf, and then after that dries, I'll go back over it with the darker shadows and stripes that I see on it. So now I'm coming in with my second layer. I mixed a slightly darker shade of green, and I'm getting in some of those lines that I see on the leaf, some of those shadows. Now as the shade of green I'm using is getting darker, that means I'm adding more blue to it to get a deeper green tone. Now there's definitely some glare, so it's hard to see, but I'm actually mixing a dark purple color for my stem. And I'm also not adding a lot of water. That helps that color really show up dark if it's not watered down very much. And then it's time for me to go back in with a third layer of an even deeper, darker green on my leaf. So I'm finishing up my leaf and my stem, and the rest of the painting I'm going to do off camera. I'm just going to block in a few more leaves in a really general, not as detailed way, and fill in the background, and I will show you guys my final result. Alright, so here is my finished painting. As you can see, I added some more leaves. I painted these a lot more quickly than I painted the tulip. I made them less detailed, and I kind of just blocked them in. I didn't do as many layers because I really want the actual tulip flower itself to be the main focus. And then I decided I wanted to have a background that kind of is meant to be the sky, a light blue background, rather than some more dark leaves. So that was just my choice of how I wanted it to look, and then I made sure to sign it. So now that it's all dry, I can peel back the tape. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe you learned a little something new about watercolor. I'm going to be teaching a watercolor class live over Zoom if you're interested in learning more. This class is meant for beginners. We're going to cover basic watercolor techniques, and we're specifically going to be focusing on natural subjects, so something like a tulip, for example. I'm really excited to be teaching this class. If you're new to watercolor, this class is for you. I'll be teaching some of the very basics of how to get started. And I will be giving live demonstrations, and we will also get to paint together. So if you're interested in signing up and learning more, the link will be in the description. The class will be on Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to noon, and it starts on May 13th. Thank you guys again for watching.